For years, Funke stayed quiet, letting her success speak softly. But fate had other plans, and the very people who once turned their backs on her were about to meet the mirror of their own choices. Tomi had built a life that glittered, but only on the outside. Designer handbags, photo shoots in expensive restaurants, and vacations she couldn't really afford. Her salary was decent, but her appetite for luxury was greater. Credit cards, borrowed money, and promises to pay back later became a silent story. Still, she smiled for the camera, carefully hiding the truth. Until one Monday morning, the day everything broke out. She was sitting in her office when her manager called. Tomi, HR wants to see you. The tone was off and cold. Her palms went damp as she entered the HR's office. Two people sat across the table, her boss and the company's legal officer. Tomi, her boss began. We received reports about certain financial discrepancies linked to your department. We traced multiple irregular transfers to your account. What? Tomi's voice trembled. That's impossible. But he showed her documents revealing her name, her account number, her signature. I didn't do this, she shouted, but deep down, she knew she took the money to pay off her debts, thinking she would return it before they suspect. Her boss sighed. You can explain that to the auditors. For now, you are suspended indefinitely pending investigation. She stood frozen as the world she built on image and pride began to crumble. For the first time in years, she had no words, no excuses, but silence. While Tommy's world shook, David's was quietly sinking. His tech startup had grown too fast. Investors poured money in, but David's arrogance grew faster than his business. He made rash decisions, ignored his team, and spent recklessly on appearances, luxury cars, gadgets, and trips meant to look successful. Then one morning, his lead investor pulled out after discovering financial mismanagement in the company's books. By afternoon, David's account was frozen. By evening, his staff began resigning. Within weeks, the company collapsed. The same blogs that once called him Nigeria's young tech prodigy now headlined Startup Scandal. David Benson accused of fraud and mismanagement. The shame was unbearable. He tried calling friends and mentors, but everyone vanished. And for the first time, he thought of his sister, Funke, the one who always picked up his calls, the one he once ignored outside his own office. But pride chained his tongue. He didn't call, not yet. Funke, on the other hand, had entered a new season of light. Her brand, Chloe Tret, was now a household name in African-inspired fashion. Her story was featured on TV, the woman who rose from cleaner to CEO. When she spoke at events, people clapped with tears in their eyes. She never exaggerated her journey. She simply said, God gave me strength when people gave me silence. Chloe, now 15 years old, was her pride. She was confident, kind, and wise beyond her years. Sometimes, when they prayed at night, Chloe would say, Mommy, you see, God remembered us. Funke would smile, brushing her daughter's hair. Yes, my dear, he always does, just in his time. One raining evening, there was a knock on Funke's gate. She wasn't expecting anyone. When she opened the door, she froze. Standing in the rain, soaked and trembling, was Tomi. Her makeup had washed off, her eyes red from crying. Her once straightened hair was now tangled. Funke, she whispered, please can I come in? Funke blinked, struggling to find her voice. Yes, yes, of course. Tomi stepped in, collapsing on the couch. For minutes, she said nothing, just sobbed. Then between gasps, she told Funke everything. The job loss, the investigation, the deaths, the humiliation. Funke listened quietly, tears burning in her own eyes, not from anger but from empathy. When Tomi finished, she looked up ashamed. I deserve this, don't I? She whispered, after everything I did to you. Funke took a slow breath. Tomi, I won't lie. You hurt me deeply, but I never wished you pain. I only prayed that one day you'd remember who you are and how we started. Tomi broke down again. I'm sorry, Funke. I was proud. I thought I was better, but when life stripped everything, I realized you were the strong one all along. Funke reached for her hand. We all make mistakes. The difference is what we do after. Tomi nodded, crying into her palm. That night, Funke gave her food, a change of clothes, and a place to sleep. And as Tomi walked around the house holding a cup of hot tea, she silently watched Chloe reading a book with laughter in her bedroom. She whispered to herself, this is peace. This is what I lost chasing shadows. 2 weeks later, David appeared. Unlike Tomi, he didn't cry. He just stood outside the gate with his head bowing. Chloe was the one who saw him first. Mommy, there's a man outside. He looks like you, but tired. When Funke came out, her chest tightened. David looked older, his beard unkempt with hollow eyes. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked. Sis, Funke didn't let him finish. She just opened her arms. He fell into her embrace and sobbed. For the first time since their parents' death, they cried together. Inside, he saw Tommy. She stood awkwardly with swollen eyes. They didn't need words. One glance was enough. Years of pride, distance, and regret melting in silence. Funke looked at them both and said softly, maybe pain was the only way God could bring us back together. Weeks turned into months. Tommy stayed with Funke, helping with Chloe threads. She had a sharp eye for business strategy, and for the first time, she used it to build, not boast. David offered to create a digital store for Funke's brand. He worked tirelessly, sometimes sleeping on the floor beside his laptop. Slowly, they bonded again as a family, healing through work, prayer, and laughter. Chloe became their link, always teasing and always cheerful. One evening, she looked up from her novel and said, Mommy, this house feels full now. Funke smiled. It does, doesn't it? Months later, Funke received an invitation to an international fashion summit in London, the Global Voices of Design conference. She was to speak on resilience and heritage, the African woman's power through fabric. She nearly refused. She was too humble to believe she deserved it. But Tommy and David insisted. You've earned this, David said. Go show the world what strength looks like, Tommy added. Funke traveled with Chloe. The event was magical, cameras flashing, designers applauding, journalists interviewing. Her story touched everyone. When she walked off the stage, a top investor approached her. Mrs. Funke would like to partner with you to open a global branch of Chloe Threads in London. Funke was speechless. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, God, you really do lift the humble. Back home, she expanded her company, opening a training institute for underprivileged women who wanted to learn tailoring and design. She named it the Mona Foundation after her late mother. Tommy managed operations, David built digital systems. Chloe, now older, modeled the clothes with pride. During the grand opening, Funke stood on stage looking at her siblings in the front row. She smiled, her voice was steady. Life has a strange way of humbling us, but also of healing us. I once thought love was about always being needed, but I learned true love is staying kind even when forgotten. The crowd clapped, some wiping tears. Tommy and David joined her on stage. We are here, David said into the mic because one woman refused to give up on us. The audience erupted in applause. That night, after everyone left, Funke sat outside under the moonlight. Chloe called beside her. Mommy, she whispered, do you forgive them completely? Funke smiled softly. Forgiveness isn't a one-time thing, my love. It's something you choose every day until your heart finally feels light. Chloe nodded thoughtfully. Then you must have the lightest heart in the world. Funke laughed quietly. Maybe I do. The wind blew gently, carrying the scent of roses from the garden. And for the first time in years, Funke didn't feel the weight of yesterday, only peace. The morning sun spilled through the wide windows of Chloe Thread's headquarters, painting the glass walls in gold. The place whispered with quiet elegance the hum of sewing machines, laughter from apprentices, and the redeeming clack of heels down the marble corridor. Funke stood at the balcony, watching it all unfold. A company, a dream, a miracle. She sipped her tea slowly, smiling as the Lagos city moved beneath her feet, alive and untamed, the same city that once spat her out, now singing her name. Mrs. Benson, her assistant called, stepping into the office. There's someone here to see you. Funke turned. Who? The assistant hesitated. A young woman. She says she's Mr. Collins' daughter. The name is Funke like cold water. Mr. Collins, the man who had stolen her innocence, the man who had left her to raise Chloe alone. She hadn't heard his name in almost 2 decades. Send her in, Funke said softly, her heart pounding. The girl who walked in couldn't have been more than 21. She looked nervous while clutching her bag. Good morning, ma, she said. My name is Lara Collins. Funke nodded. Please sit. Lara sat down carefully. I know you don't know me, ma, but I found out something a few months ago. My father, Mr. Collins, passed away, and before he died, he confessed that years ago he did something terrible to a young girl who came to him for help. Funke's heart clenched. Lara swallowed hard. He made my mother promise never to tell, but I found letters and his diaries. He wrote that the woman's name was Funke Benson. I searched until I found you. There was silence, and the only sound was the city outside. Horns, wind, life continuing as if they didn't just witness history. Lara's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to make this right. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for what he did. I know it can't change anything, but I had to come. Funke's hands trembled around her teacup. For years she dreamed of closure, but she never imagined it would come like this, through the daughter of her pain. She rose slowly, walked to the window and exhaled. Then she turned and looked at Lara. She saw fear, guilt, sincerity. Lara, she said softly, you owe me nothing. You didn't hurt me. Your father since died with him, but your courage to come here and face me is something I'll never forget. Lara broke down crying quietly. Funke crossed the room and held her. It was strange hugging the daughter of the man who broke her life apart. But at that moment, something in her heart finally unclenched. She whispered, forgiveness isn't for the person who hurt you, it's for you so you can breathe again. Weeks later, David was approached by a major investor impressed by his new tech platform for artisans. Your sister's story changed my life, the investor said, and your work complements her vision. Let's partner. That night, David told Funke, you didn't just forgive me, sis, you rebuilt me. I'll never waste that chance again. Funke smiled, just make sure you use your second chance to lift others. He nodded, that's the plan. Tomi started mentoring young women, teaching them financial discipline and self-worth. I used to think success was about looking rich, she told her students. Now I know it's about sleeping with peace. She often ended her sessions with a quote Funke used to say, your past is a teacher, not a sentence. Chloe, now 17, had her own light. She loved fashion, but her true passion was storytelling. She began documenting the stories of the women in the Mona Foundation, their tears, triumphs, and laughter. Her videos went viral online. Soon she was invited to speak at a youth conference about resilience. Standing on that stage, with her mother in the front row, Chloe said, my mother taught me that pain can be recycled and turned into purpose. She's living proof that scars don't define you, they refine you. Funke's eyes glistened with pride. She whispered to Tomi, she's better than me already. Tomi smiled. That's the point, isn't it? Years later, as each touched her hair with silver, Funke often sat by her window at sunset, watching Chloe lead the next generation of designers and storytellers. One evening, Tomi joined her in the living room with 2 cups of tea. You know, Tomi said, sometimes I still think about how cruel we were, how blind. Funke laughed gently. That's what makes the story beautiful, Tomi. We broke, but we mended. They sat in silence, watching the sky change colors. Then Tomi asked, do you ever think about Mr. Collins? Funke thought for a long moment. Not with it anymore, she said finally. He took so much from me, but God gave me back more than I ever dreamed. Sometimes, forgiveness is the only way to win. She looked at Chloe, now preparing for a trip to Paris for an international internship. Her heart swelled with pride. The little girl she once carried through markets and bus stops was now walking into the world, not burdened by her mother's past, but lifted by her strength. On the day of Chloe's departure, the family gathered at the airport. David hugged her tightly. Make us proud, superstar. Tomi wiped her tears. Call us every day. Don't forget Nigerian food, Chloe laughed. I'll try. Funke just stood there, smiling through tears. Mommy, Chloe said, holding her hands, you've done enough. Now it's my turn to carry the name. Funke whispered, carry it with kindness. As Chloe walked toward the gate, sunlight poured through the glass ceiling, warm and golden.